I recently DNFed 3 romantasy series, so let's talk about it. Especially because 2 out of the 3 series I'm gonna talk about, I DNF'd it at the last book, but I just couldn't do it anymore, so I stopped reading them. So yeah, let's start with the first one. So the first one I'm gonna talk about is The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee. The first book in this series being The Veiled Kingdom, the second one The Hunted Heir. I have so much trouble saying these 2 words together. And the third one being The Revoled Crown. So yeah, I DNF'd it at the third one and I was at 40%, but let's go back to the beginning and talk about what was the first book about. So in this series, you follow Nira, who's a princess on the run from her father, who's also the king. She's a fae, but without any magic, so she's been abused by her father her whole life because she's the heir to the throne, and she has no magic, so it posed a problem to him. But when rebels came to the kingdom, she managed to escape the palace, and since then she has been living on the streets. But at some point she's been caught by the royal guards, and she's in the palace prison, but they don't realize that it's the missing princess. And her prison cell neighbor is the daughter of one of the rebels' chief. So at some point the rebels come to save the daughter, and they also save Nira. So now she is in the rebel compound, and the rebels want to find the princess, and they don't know that she's the princess that they're looking for. So that's the story in the first book, and it's like hidden identity, mistaken identity. There's also a romance between her and the son of the rebel chief. So yeah, that's what happens in the first book. And it ended in a cliffhanger that wanted you to read the second one, because I'm not gonna say what it is, but it made you want to read the next book, which is the point of the cliffhanger. But yeah. And then the second book came out, The Hunted Heir, and honestly, it was pretty bad. You can even see the ratings on Goodreads. The rating of the first book is like 3.82, and the second one has like a 3.49. So it's pretty rare that you see that the second book doesn't have a higher rating than the first one. And so that means that the second book was pretty bad. But yeah, to be honest, in the second book, not a lot happens. You have Nira and I forgot to say the name of the chief's son. It's Gaither. So you have Nira and Gaither, and they are apart during the whole book because of the last book cliffhanger. But nothing happens. They are in the forest, and that's it. It was a pretty quick book. I think it's a little bit more than 200 pages, or maybe 250, something like that. But you could see that it was a filler book. But then again, it had a good cliffhanger, and I was like, it only has one book left in this series, so I'm pretty interested to see how the series will end and how everything will play out. But I just couldn't do it. I stopped at 40% because, again, nothing happened. A lot of internal monologue, not a lot of dialogue or just conversation. And something that was starting to piss me off, it's I don't know why the author decided to just keep repeating it, but the walls kept shaking all the time for 40%, and I'm like, why? Just the walls shake, the walls shake, the walls shake. And I'm, okay, the building is gonna crash or what? I don't know. I know I'm being nitpicky, but it was just something I was like seeing every time I was reading the book, and I'm like, I can't do it anymore. A new plot point were being introduced in the last book of a series, and I'm like, shouldn't you have done that maybe in the last book, which was a filler book? I'm not gonna say I was disappointed in this series, because it's not like the first book was my favorite book. I know a lot of people enjoyed it on BookTube, but I just liked it. Okay. But I was still interested to see how the series would end. But when I was at 40%, I was like, no, thank you. So I stopped. And I was thinking maybe the author tried to publish the series too quickly, because only a year passed between the publishing of the first book and the last book. To me, it lacked the romantasy aspect of a series, of a story. It didn't have a very defined magic system or world building. So yeah, and to me also, not everything can be fixed by having the characters having sex, because sex is not a replacement for emotional connection. I knew of Holly Renee when she was writing contemporary romances, like Good Girls, Bad Boys. I don't remember the titles, I will put the cover here. I read them maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. And I knew she also wrote another romantasy series, but I saw the rating, I was like, no, I'm not interested. I probably won't read any more of a romantasy series if they happen to be like this one. The second series I'm gonna talk about is a bigger disappointment because I really enjoyed the first book, I even bought it, and it's A Court is Cruel and Lovely by Stacia Stark. If you've seen my first romantasy review, I talked about this book, and I talked a little bit more in depth about the first book, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it now. So the series is called Kingdom of Lies, with the first one being This Court, This Cruel and Lovely, the second one being A Kingdom, This Cursed and Empty, the third one being A Crown, This Cold and Heavy, and the fourth one being A Queen, This Fierce and Deadly, and I DNFed it at 30%. So yeah, this one was a bigger disappointment because I invested more of my time in it, because the books, each book, are bigger than the other series I just talked about. And also because I really enjoyed the first book. So in this one you follow Priska, who lives in a world when you are born you give your powers to the god, and when you turn 25 you get your powers back, but she's not 25 and she still has her powers. She can stop time. So it's very dangerous for her to exist in this world, in this kingdom, because if she's found out, she's killed, her family is killed. So yeah, it's very dangerous. So at some point she escapes because she has been discovered, and she stumbled upon a mercenary group, and they realized that they could have an agreement. They could use her power, and she could have like protection from them to a certain extent. And she has a relationship with the chief of the mercenary, of the group of a mercenary, who's called Lorian. And also Priska realized that after she escaped, her best friend was taken to the palace prison because she also had powers before being 25. So she decides to infiltrate the palace to then free her best friend. And then you have like a bigger plot of vengeance and people with powers before being 25. So yeah, that's what happened in this book, and I really enjoyed it because I really liked the friendship aspect. I liked the story overall, but yeah, that quickly changed with the second and third book, which to me felt like filler books. This series to me could have been maybe a trilogy instead of a, I don't know how you say, quadrilogy, a saga. So yeah, this series could have been a trilogy, because in the second and third one, honestly, not a lot happens. You get more POVs. So in the first book, you get 2 POVs, if I remember correctly. You have Priska and Lorian, but in the second and third book, you have maybe 4 or 5 POVs, and you're like, okay, so now you need to get used to having more to be in more POVs and being more in more people's head. My other big problem with this series is that the story arc is the same during the 4 books. They just want revenge on the king in the first book that imprisoned people when they have powers. And for 4 books, it's a lot of the same story. So that's why to me the second and the third book was kind of fillers, because they just go on adventures to just have some like ally, to find some relics. But to me it was just too long and honestly a bit boring. There was a cliffhanger during this at the end of the second book, and maybe you were supposed to be like, oh no, and I was just like, huh? To me, the cliffhanger was not very special because I feel like we were seeing too many characters, so when the cliffhanger happened, you're just like, who is he again? Oh yeah. And why should I care? Oh yeah. So yeah, I had a hard time getting attached to the characters because we were seeing so many new characters, so many new POVs, and some of them didn't add anything new to the stories. And what made me DNF the series during the last book is because actually, weirdly, I didn't like being in the POVs of Priska and Lorian anymore. To me, their relationship was kind of stalling, but also, like in the last series that I talked about, there was just too much sex and not enough meaningful connection. Again, you can't replace connection and love just with sex. So yeah, that was also my problem, and also the dialogue was also the same, and Lorian was being like an alpha male, but I hate this kind of characters. And I much enjoy the other POVs, and I'm kind of sad of not following them. Like at some point we follow one of the servants of the queen who also escaped with Priska during the first book. And I liked her story arc because she was quite a prickly person, and she didn't really let people in, and she didn't want to care about anything or anybody, and at some point you realize that she cares. And I really enjoyed, I forgot the name, I will write it here, but I really enjoyed the POV, but it was not enough for me to continue the series. And the last series I'm gonna talk about that I DNF'd is the Shadows and Crowns series by S M Gaither. The first one being Song of the Marked, and the second one being A Twist of the Blade. I think there's 5 books in this series. But yeah, I DNF'd the series during the second one. The only reason I didn't stop reading this series after having read the first one is because I had this one on my TBR, like physical TBR. If I had it on my tablet, I wouldn't have continued the series. But I had it physically, so I at least tried, and I stopped. So in this one you follow Cassia, who's a mercenary, and at some point she steals something she shouldn't have, and because she stole from a royal guard, so she's taken to the palace prison again. Like, all these series have a common theme, being in prison in the palace. But what's particular about Cassia is that she survived a plague that very few people did. So now, which I liked in the book is that you have like illustrations just at the beginning and the end. So this is Cassia, and she survived the plague, so now she doesn't have any color in her eyes and in her hair. And so the king has tasked her to find the cure, or at least the reason why the plague exists and why people keep dying. And for that, she has to team up with Captain Elander, which is the guard she stole from. So it's like enemies to lovers, very loosely enemies. And to be honest, in this book, I felt like there was not enough dialogue. Like, you read a lot of paragraph, and you only have, like, for example, in this page, you don't even have a single line of dialogue. In this one, you have like 5 lines of dialogue, so it's very few. And I realized that when I was at the end, because of course Cassia and Elander are gonna fall in love, and at some point he says to her, "Oh, I feel like we've known each other all life," and I'm like, but you barely talk to each other, so how do you know each other? So yeah, that made me realize that during the whole book, not a lot of dialogue, and you were expecting some twists, some plot twists at the end. Like, there's 2 plot twists at the end of the first book, and one of them was very predictable, and I was hoping it wouldn't happen, but it did happen. The other plot twist, I was like, okay, again, not very like, wow. I don't know if it was like on purpose or not to have like a Twilight reference, because at some point one of the characters said to Cassia, "You know what I am?" And she's like, "Yes." And he says, "Say it out loud." And I'm like, is it Twilight coded? So that made me laugh, but also took me a little bit out of the story. That's why the reveal of the second plot twist didn't do a lot for me, because I was just thinking about Twilight. So yeah, I continued in the second one, and I realized that the story was also going in another direction that I not would have liked, because I'm not the one who chooses how the story happen, but I realized that the story wasn't going in a direction that I would like to read, at least. So yeah, and I also realized again that not a lot of dialogue, and the secondary characters were there just for like, not even the plot, but just for convenience. She said that they were her best friend. It's like found family, but I didn't feel any of that. Especially during the first book, at some point they are apart, and she didn't really care about what happened to them. So yeah, I had a hard time getting attached to the characters, to the story, so that's why I decided to DNF the series. But at least I'm glad I tried this one. And one time I had ordered this one on Vinted and the package got lost, so when I found the other two on Vinted, I bought it because I felt like the universe didn't want me to read the stories, but I wanted to. So at least I tried it. It was not for me. So yeah, that was the 3 book series I DNF recently. Let me know if you have read them, if you have finished them, or if you have also DNF'd them. That's the end of the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!